Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to fix the bottom of the door jamb on the 86 Pontiac. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button. Subscribing helps me out big time. Right now, I'm around 550 subscribers. My goal is to eventually get to 1,000 subscribers, but we're hoping to get to 600 sooner than later. That's the next big hurdle. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Clara Garage. Let's get started. Alright, so here's the area that we're going to start fixing first. So we've already done the top in a previous video. So we need to fix this outer section here. This is all drunk and gone. Holes there. And all holes in here. And then the whole rocker panel is going to have to get fixed. So you can see what's in behind the trim is all loose as well. So off camera, I'm going to take this trim piece off, and then I might clean up a little bit of what's here first and come up with my game plan. But I'm going to have to repair the metal in behind here before I can close this in. You can kind of see a little bit right here, there's some fresh metal. I knew when I was doing the floor that I was going to be getting into this, so I had actually carried some of my metal past where it was convenient and structurally stronger to do so, to tie it all in. So I'll be tying into this metal here that's new, and then I'm going to have to repair probably all the whole way through. So a few things I need to make sure I keep in place are, I can't build it out further than what it is because then the door won't close. But I also got a fender mount here and here that are really important. And then this chrome piece too, I got to make sure that everything works out nice for that chrome piece. But I'll be able to put it on off and on when I need to make sure that things are still fitting, and I'm going to mark some stuff out to make sure I keep stuff lined up the way it was factory. So I'm going to get this kind of cleaned up. I'm going to get this off, see what I'm really dealing with. It's probably going to be worse than what I'm anticipating, but there's not too many surprises left on this. It's been a lot of work all the way through, but we're slowly getting there. We're not quite on the home stretch, but we're getting close to the home stretch. Alright, I got the metal cleaned up. I got some rough lines of where I'm thinking of cutting. I haven't cut anything out yet. All this is just how rusted it was. I got my templates made up, but first I'll show you what we're kind of starting with. So, as we can see, there's not much here. So we're going to end up cutting all along here out, along this lower line. I don't think we're going to have to go to the higher line. I think it's going to be good enough. And we're going to come over. There's that mounting holes. We're going to try to just take off the bottom section to keep that location the same. And then coming over here, we're going to replace all of this. But we might be able to salvage this 90, which will save us a little bit of work. But if not, I did make my template to accommodate having to put that bend in. So that's kind of what we're starting with. It's pretty rusted out. So originally I was planning on doing this in two sections. I was planning on doing this piece and then coming down and doing this rolling down. But I think I can do this whole section out of one piece right here. So this is the template that I made up. And it's going to be something kind of like this. So it's going to fit like that. And then it'll end up coming in and being something about like that right there. And then we'll have this piece here will come like so. which would be on the front of this. It'll be something kind of like that. And then this is the piece that will hit up over here. And it'll be something like that. I might not have to do this bend up. I might just have to do the flat part. But I cut my chunks of metal big enough to accommodate if I have to do either or. I also made a little template of the radius up here to help me keep things lined up. As well as I did a template of the step right here, so I can try to keep that line the way it's supposed to be as well. And I've already got my metal traced out and cut out, so we're ready to start bending. And this is that piece that's going to be in here. And I already kind of started shaping this piece here. So we're going to continue with this piece first and get the basic shape. And looking at it like this, you can see we still got to do quite a bit more on here. So the way I'm getting this long swooping arc, I'm using the vise. So we're going to do that right now and get this piece a little bit closer using just the vise and a hammer. So the way I've been doing it, I open the jaws up. And then it's just kind of sitting like that, and then you just hammer on the top where you need to. And then if you need to tighten up the radius when you're doing it, you can close the vise in like this, and then you can focus on a smaller area, and you'd hit along here and it would bend just the area between the mouth of the vise. So you can really make a nice curve with heavier metal. If you when you have a vise and a hammer, you can actually do a pretty nice job with quite a bit of control still. Alright, we got this piece fitting pretty close now. We put our template in, it's pretty uniform. The old piece had a little up right here. It's hard to tell if it's the way it was spot welded in or if it was just rusted and kind of collapsed a little bit. So I'm not going to worry about recreating that little up part, I don't think. I might change my mind before I weld it in, but at this point I'm not going to worry about that because it's going to be lower down anyways and everything's going to flow and it's going to look good. So I think I'm okay if I don't recreate that little up because I'm not 100% sure if that was supposed to be there in the first place. So that's kind of how it fits. It's looking pretty good, pretty uniform. And then this extra 3/4 of an inch or so overhanging. That's my extra metal if I end up having to recreate this bend right here. It'll eat up about all that, 3/4 of an inch of material. Now we're going to start creating this top piece here. Oh, and I should have mentioned, when I was making my template and figuring out where I needed it to flatten out, I went on the one part of the rocker panel that was still kind of there, and I made myself a little template. So this is coming off the rocker panel, and then it comes out, down, over, and in on the rocker panel portion. And then on the portion that we're doing, it doesn't have this nub out because the fender's there. So it's just straight down right here. and then it'll come over. As long as I'm inside of this area here going this way, I know that the fender won't hit. So if I'm off by a little bit, I want to be off this way, not out, because then it will cause me fitment issues afterwards. So if I'm going to overcompensate in either direction, I'm going to overcompensate this way to make sure that the fender fits properly. And then the bottom part, this line doesn't have to be exact. If it's up a little bit, that's okay, because the fender curls underneath right here. So if this line is up a little bit, that's okay. But it gives me a good rough ballpark of where I need to be. So that just kind of fits like that. I made some white lines around where the bottom of my piece needs to go. But it's something like that is what was originally here. But from this portion up, doesn't have that step in it. From about the center pin of the hinge, this way has that lip coming out, and then from the center pin of this hinge forward is just flat, and then works this way in. So this piece is going to be a little bit tricky to make. We come down from here, it's flat till right at this line, and then it comes out and then kind of drops down a couple inches and then starts to go back in. But it kind of tapers out here, and it kind of gets a little more aggressive and funky up here. So the way that I'm going to bend this, I'm going to use this line here, which is the line that I marked on my steel already, and I'm going to bend it out, and then I'll go about so I'm going to start from this line, and I'm going to bend the metal out like this, and then after about half inch or so of distance, then I'm going to flatten it back out. It's basically just 245s. And this bubble out from about this front bolt on the hinge over, that's where it starts to taper out to nothing. When you hit this line, it should have no bubble out at all. So I will go back and hammer that flat, and if I need to do a little cutting, if I can't shrink it enough with the hammer to get it to lay flat the way it's supposed to, I can do that once I get it kind of pre-shaped, because it'll be pretty hard to do that taper out all at once with this. So it's easier to bend this whole piece straight across, tapering it out, and doing the final fitment once that main line is done. That'd be the easiest way to do it. So we're going to get started on that. I'm going to mark my other line, I think, before I start bending, so it'll kind of give me a little bit of a reference. Alright, so there's kind of our two lines. So this line is going to be bent like that, and then this line will be bent back down. And we're going to, this is pretty heavy stuff, so we're going to do it right on the vise. And it should go pretty good. It's roughly 45-degree angles. So we know that we come basically flat over and over, and that's about 45 degrees. And when we do this, we're going to just kind of go back and forth, moving it in the vise. So if you try to bend it all at once, it'll start to kink and give you a lot of issues. So if you just go nice and gently back and forth, it'll be the way to go. I'm going to bend this line first, because once I bend this upper line, I'm not going to be able to fit this in the vise to do it, and I'd have to use the edge of the table. So I'm going to do the bottom line first in the vise, and I can use the edge of the table to tune them both up afterwards if I need to, but that'll be a little bit easier. And I'm going to keep a little bit of pressure on the top of this too as I hammer. Alright, we got this bent up pretty close. So we put our template on here. You can see that bottom section is pretty good. We just got to bend up here now, but it's looking pretty decent. Well, hammering it, not sure if you can tell or not, it concaved a little bit in where we're hammering. So before we go further and start bending our next bend and bending the rest of this, so we're going to lay it flat on the table and we're going to hammer that concave out of it so it doesn't cause us issues later on. And it's easy to get a good clean swing because there's nothing blocking us or anything, and it's good to deal with it before it gets out of hand too much. So we're just going to go flat on the table like this. If you hammer too much, it'll actually stretch the metal the other way and it'll concave out the other way, and if that happens, you just turn it upside down and then hammer it back, and you don't have to do real hard blows, just nice light easy blows should do it. Alright, and that's much better. It feels nice and flat, so that'll be pretty good. And when you are hammering, you want to hold it so it's tight on the table. You don't want it bouncing when you hammer because you're not going to get a good controlled metal shaping or blow. So you want to make sure it's tight on the table so you have full control of it and the hammer is doing what you want it to, that it's not bouncing and maybe distorting it even more. So now we just got to bend this 45 right here, and this top section should be pretty close. Alright, so I'm going to use this big flat-ish, kind of slightly concaved here. I'm going to use this big chisel so I can get in and hammer where I want. So I'm not going to be able to hold pressure like I did the last time, even though it'd be nice to be able to, because I'm going to be holding this chisel and swinging the hammer at the same time. So I'm going to be holding it kind of almost at that top crease line where our bend was from the other one. I'm going to be basically doing my blows there to get this bend initiated. And then once I get the bend initiated, I can probably move it down a little bit lower. And we basically want to make it so this face is back parallel with the other face, and then we should have two equal bends. Alright, we're starting to get some shape to this. So it's starting to look pretty good. It's a little too aggressive in the back end. It's a little bit light in the front, but we actually want to kind of get that out anyway, so I think that's going to work out in our favor. So here's our template. When we rest it on here, we can see that we have just a little bit too much bend. And it kind of gets a little bit light down here. But we're just going to take a little bit of the bend out of here, and that will probably get us where we want to be. There's a couple different ways we could get that bend out. We can go in the vise and clamp just along here to try to squeeze it, or we can kind of go on the edge of our table and just kind of hammer, and that's what I'm going to do. Alright, I got this bend right where I want it for now anyways. So as you can see, it's pretty dang close. So I think that's going to work out pretty good. And then you hold it up. It looks like it's going to be pretty decent actually. So I know this isn't where it fits, but this is where it fits right now with where my offset is. And when I hold it tight, this outer edge is pretty close to where it's supposed to be. So when it's back here and I get the other metal cut out, it's going to fit pretty good actually. Alright, I got our bends marked out for our next steps. I already did a cut here because this section here is going to stay flat and then come in. And then this section here is going to come out, over, bend again, down, another bend, and then pretty much a 90. So this is kind of our shape that we're going to have. And as a whole, it will look something like that. So this section here, I'm not going to do any bending on this right now. I'm just going to bend this section. And then once I bend this section, get it fitting right, then I'll be able to see where I need to do my bends on here to make sure everything fits properly. We have a pretty good rough shape on this piece now. It's pretty close, so it shouldn't take too much more massaging to get it to fit in correctly. But to make sure that we're on the right track, we're going to cut all this out so that we can start getting it in permanently, making sure that our depth is good and everything else. So we're going to start doing that. Alright, we got this piece cut out. It's pretty rough underneath. You can see all the rust on it there. It's pretty bad. But we still got it in one piece. We have a pretty good template still if we need to reference it at all. And this is what we're kind of left with. We're going to have to clean up a little more in here. And we're going to cut up a little bit higher. It was pretty soft right here still. I'm probably going to have to go up to this line, and then I'll come down like so. And now I can access the stuff that I brought through from the other side and finish this up nice and proper, as well as carry this face down. And then the fender mounts on here. So we have part of that left there, so we're going to be able to weld onto that when we weld our new piece on, and that'll make sure that fender is mounted really strong and sturdy. And then this piece of metal here must be from the old rocker panel. It must carry it up past. But there's not really much left. It's not really doing anything at all from what we can see. So I'll probably be able to actually just jiggle that right out of there and get it right out. This lip here seems really strong, so I think I'm going to salvage this portion here and reuse it. So I'm going to start cleaning this up a bit. And I'm going to start fitting this in because it sits a little bit low, which we knew it would. Just going off of the lines over here, it needs to be up right around there. So we have a little bit to trim off of it to make it fit. But on the back side, it's going to be pretty close where it's supposed to be. I might need to make a couple little tweaks on it, but it's looking pretty close actually. So So I think we're in pretty good shape. And then even this piece here, it'll be something like that. Needs a little bit of trimming and tweaking on it, but it's pretty good. The curve on it, like this, is pretty much bang on. So we're going to be in pretty good shape there too. And then we'll make some templates up to get along here done as well. Because we're going to need to finish inside here before we can permanently get our outer piece on. But we can do in here or outer piece first as far as finish shaping it and that kind of stuff. And then finish it off. But we got to make sure we get in here all done. Get this stuff all cleaned up a little bit better to make sure that we're in good shape. But it's looking pretty good. We didn't really find any extra surprises, which is nice. So we should be making pretty good headway and have this done pretty soon. Alright, we got this piece all made up. I did a little bit of it off camera, but I got it all together, all ground. So it turned out pretty good. My gap's not too bad here for welding. Could have been maybe a hair smaller, but it will be okay. It comes down. I added this piece on too. I'll pull this off in a second there. And then you can see how this comes here. Nice smooth motion. And then we got this piece here, and it's going to carry with just regular body metal the rest of the way. This is a little bit heavier because this is structure here. So I wanted to make sure I carried the appropriate metal all the way down. So yeah, so that's our piece. And then this is the back side. So to make this up, it's only 4 pieces of metal. So we got our main piece along here. And then we got this piece here that was separate and then welded on. As well as this piece here was separate then welded on. And same with this little piece here. And looking on the back, I never cleaned up the welds or anything. So you can see the welds in along here, as well as right here, and as well as welding this piece on here. I went a little bit thicker with the welds than I normally would. So when I was cleaning up and grinding, if I needed to get a little extra shape, if I didn't like how it was coming together, I had some extra weld there, and it makes it super strong. And then on the back side, we put some new metal in here, did a little bead roll in it, so now we'll have something solid to weld to when we put that other piece on. So I haven't cleaned the welds or anything up, and I probably won't clean the welds up because you're not going to be able to see it anyways. So you're not really, other than looking perfect, you're not really gaining much by grinding them up and making it smooth in here, because it's going to be all capped in and inaccessible. So I'm going to clean this up a bit and wipe it down as well as this, and then I'm going to prime in here and paint, as well as prime and paint inside here too. And then this way, when we put it on after, all the surfaces are protected. So I'll have a little more protection, and I will end up spraying some oil in here later on as well. I already drilled a oil access hole here so I can get my wand in and get oil inside the rocker panel. So I'm going to do that off camera. And I'm also going to, coming off of here, I'm going to weld just a little flange. So when I pull the, when I bring the other section of the rocker panel up to it, I'll have a good solid flange to weld to, and it will make it a little bit stronger and to help carry the strength all the way through. Alright, so we got this all cleaned up. We got our little piece welded on here, so when we bring the other part of our rocker panel on, it's going to be extra strong. I got the backside primed and painted. And same thing with here. I got this all primed and painted. And then I went and I already cleaned up where I'm going to be welding. So now our next step is to slip this in, clamp it in place, make sure it's where we want it, and then we can start tacking it in. We want to make sure that this is level across here and getting this way too. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So we're good this way. It's hard to tell here, but we're pretty good here as well. And then we're pretty good up along here. Seems pretty good. We're good on here. So we're basically ready to start welding it in. So before we start welding, this is what it looks like. Everything's fitting pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with it. I cut this back just a hair, so it's so this piece would fit in underneath. There's some old welds in that were hanging me up, so I just gave that a little tiny trim. You can kind of see it there, about a 1/4 inch I took off of this portion for now. So I'm going to get the welder going, and then we'll start tacking this in place and welding it in. Oh, one thing that's important to note too, you want to make sure that this line is nice and smooth and everything's in place. Because if you're in too far and you need to bump it out after you're done welding, you can't get a hammer in behind to knock it out. You could try welding something on using a slide hammer or something, but that's a really big pain. So you want to make sure that it's nice before you start welding. If you need to do any hammering or dolling, you can take this piece off. You can kind of access this a bit, but this is factory, so you shouldn't have to touch that at all. With this piece here, we can take it off onto our steel table, work it a little bit more if we needed to. We want this nice smooth line where even with that gap, your finger is not getting caught on it at all. It's just nice and smooth, and it's going to be a good finish when we're done. And when I start welding, I like to start my tacks near my clamps. And then if I need to move my clamps anywhere, I can move them and then weld. So I want to have a good tight weld. I don't want the panels to have big gaps or anything. I want it to be nice and tight. So now we just slowly go around and start getting it tacked into place. And then once we get it all tacked in, then we start filling in the welds. And then we're good to go. Start grinding and smooth it off, and then it's good for the next step. Alright, so when I'm doing my rosebud welds, that's when you're welding inside these circles, like the holes that we drilled out. So I like to start my weld on the outside and then drop into it, because sometimes when you start your weld on the inside, the welder kind of pops a little bit, or you might bounce and not have a good bead started, and then you get a really junky weld in there. But if you start on the outside and then once your weld starts going, then you can drop in and weld it up really nice. And I drilled these holes pretty big, so there's lots of room to get a nice weld. So like right now I'm just doing part of it, and I'll go back once everything's for sure sitting good and fill them in the rest of the way, as you can see on those guys there. Alright, I got all my clamps off. I still need to finish my tacks. But I can grab on this and the whole car wants to move. There's no flex or anything in it. So it's not going to move on me now when I weld it, as long as I don't put too much heat into it. If you put a lot of heat into it, you will warp your panel. So you just want to go nice and slow and take your time, and you'll be okay. Alright, I got it fully welded on. It's good, solid, it's looking pretty good. It feels not too bad up here. I think we got it okay. So this is what it looks like. So the welds still need to be ground down, and then they'll basically disappear. Looks pretty good in there. This is our piece that we welded, that the other piece is going to overlap on top. And as you can see, it lines up pretty good with the original. Well, it looks pretty good. Turned out pretty good in there too. It's just going to be a lot of grinding. So I'm going to grind this off camera. It's going to take a while. It's going to be pretty noisy. So after I'm done grinding it, we'll come back and we'll see the finished product. Alright, we're all done grinding. Only thing left to do is sand and scuff it up a little bit with, I'll probably use like 100 grit, and then I'll put some brushable primer on. I got some really good Dom 16 stuff. The reason I brushed it on is it's, if you don't get it all out of your gun will be ruined. So I like to, when I'm using that stuff, I just brush it on just to seal things up, and put a little bit of spray bomb paint on until I'm ready to do the final body job. So if we remember, this is what we were left with before we started. Wasn't too much. It fit on right there. And now we have it all welded on, solid ground. We added this part too, so it'll be good and strong in the front. And then here's a little bit of a closer look. It's hard to see, but right along here, and then over, and then along here was our weld seam. It turned out pretty nice. I couldn't get in here right now with the grinder. I'll probably use a Dremel later on to clean that up just a hair. But where I could get, I cleaned up. It turned out pretty decent. Oh. So I'm pretty happy with that. So for grinding, I was using this guy here. It's just an air one. It works pretty good for getting into some funky angles. And I was using this electric guy here for grinding. You just take your time and it goes pretty good. And then after all the grinding was done, I went over with this disc here on my air grinder. It's just a carbide stripping disc. It works really good for paint and everything, but also I find it does a really nice job just doing a little finishing cleanup on the welds before you sand. I used to use the flopper disc, but I found sometimes if you weren't careful, you started gouging into the steel and making divots, where that one, it just kind of floats on the top, and you really have to force really hard for it to even throw sparks. So I find it actually works out good just for doing the final cleanup before you're going to sand and get it ready for primer and paint. So I'm not going to primer paint this right now because it's a small area. I'm going to get some other stuff done, and then I'll prime everything all at the same time. So I have two options right now. I could carry my way back and finish off the rocker panel and everything, but I think I'm going to work on the fender next. I have a spot on the fender down around here that needs to be worked on. So I'm thinking I'm going to do the fender and everything. That was one of the reasons why I carried this to where I did, was so I could get the fender back on. And then it's one thing off the garage floor. So that's probably going to be my next thing, will be outer fender, and then inner fender needs some work too. And while I have everything off, it's going to be probably my best chance to change all my vacuum lines and spark plugs. So I'm going to do that just because it's super easy to access. So just looking at it, there's can't get any easier than that right now. So, and then I'll finish the rest of that stuff later is what I'm leaning towards. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram at Claro Garage. Also, subscribing is a big help to me, so if you can subscribe, that's great. Have a great night.